8. His Honour the Mayor. Big Bill Thompson slammed his massive fist down on the mayoral desk, making ashtrays and pen sets jump and jingle. "Machine guns blazing on the streets of Chicago," he boomed. "Innocent citizens terrified and wounded. It's a disgrace, I tell you." A big, handsome man, elegantly dressed and full of vitality, Thompson was a typical politician, strong on sound and fury, weak on effective action. He liked to be known as Big Bill. His campaign slogan had been, "Vote for Big Bill the Builder. He cannot be bought, bossed, or bluffed." District Attorney William McSwiggan, plump, bespectacled, and serious, gave the expected response. "Quite right, Your Honour. A disgrace indeed. Something must be done." Both men looked sternly at the third man in the room. Police Captain Dennis Riley, resplendent in his blue uniform and gleaming brass buttons, recognized his cue. "Investigations are underway at this very moment, Your Honour. I give you my solemn word the villains responsible shall be brought to justice." The formalities were concluded. Big Bill Thompson, Mayor of Chicago, sworn enemy of crime and upholder of prohibition, yanked an expensive gold fob watch from his waistcoat pocket and checked the time. "It's still a little early, but what the hell? It's been a tough day. Let's have a drink. Will you do the honors, Bill?" District Attorney McSwiggan went to the drinks cupboard in the corner of the oak-panelled office. There was the clink of bottle on glass, and he returned with 2 heavy crystal tumblers brimming with Scotch whisky. "Irish for you, Dennis?" "If you please." McSwiggan brought Riley a tumbler of Dewar's and returned to his seat. Big Bill took a cigar from the silver box on the desk, then pushed it towards Riley and McSwiggan. Both men took cigars and lit up. For a moment, all 3 sat silent, sipping whisky. Unspoken thoughts hung in the air, as heavy as the coils of blue cigar smoke. The mayor knew perfectly well that McSwiggan was Capone's liaison man with Chicago's political establishment. He knew that Riley looked after the interests of the Moran, Gussenberg, and Weiss mob in a similar way. Both McSwiggan and Riley knew that Mayor Thompson expected his cut from them and from every other corrupt official in Chicago, in return for running Chicago as an open city for crime. Thompson had an ever-hungry campaign fund that needed constant topping up. He was serving his 3rd term as mayor of Chicago, and he had his eye on higher things. Big Bill Thompson fully intended to be the next president of the United States. Why not? The man who could run Chicago could surely run America. "I have to admit that the boys went a bit too far," said Riley at last. "I'll say they did," said Thompson. "They tell me it was a war zone over there at the Hawthorne. Bullets and broken glass everywhere." "Pete Gussenberg's an impulsive fellow, Your Honour." Thompson looked at McSwiggan. "The question is, what'll Capone do about it? If he decides to pay him back in kind, there'll be a full-scale war right here in Chicago. I can imagine what the Tribune's going to make of this." The Chicago Tribune and its formidable proprietor, Colonel McCormack, were a constant problem for Big Bill Thompson. However many inspirational speeches Thompson made, Tribune editorials continued to harp on the uncomfortable and unacceptable facts. Over 500 gangland murders in the past 10 years, without one conviction. Hundreds of speakeasies, liquor joints, bars, and brothels flourishing all over Chicago and its suburbs. Above all, the constant stream of bootleg money corrupting the police, the legal system, and the politicians alike. "I don't know," said McSwiggan at last. "Al hates all this gun stuff, says it's bad for business, but he's no pushover, and he's got a temper even if he keeps it in check. They give him too much grief, there'll be blood running in the gutters." Big Bill Thompson shuddered. "What about this fella Doc?" asked Riley. Thompson shrugged. "What about him?" "I hear he was having lunch with Capone when the Hawthorne got shut up. Where does he stand in all this?" "How the hell should I know?" "I thought he was a friend of Your Honour's." Thompson shook his head. Don't know a thing about him. I got an anonymous campaign contribution. The note with it said it came from a friend of Doc's. Said there'd be more where that came from if Doc was allowed to open up his place and operate in peace. Would you mind if I was after closing him down and maybe hauling him in for a little chat? Thompson thought for a moment and then shook his head. Let's not do anything rash, Dennis. If this Doc's got connections, I don't want them mad at me. I've got enough enemies as it is. Besides, it was a pretty big contribution. Something about that wee fella makes me uncomfortable, said Riley. He's too damn sure of himself, and he's got this girl, Ace, that can shoot the eyes out of a fly, so they tell me, and Decker's tied in with him as well. Forget about Doc, said Thompson impatiently. What's another speakeasy more or less? It's this feud between Capone and Moran's boys that worries me. He put his big hands on the desk and leaned forward. Talk to these guys, both of you. Tell them to keep things peaceful. If they don't, I'll launch a police crackdown that'll put them all out of business. Remember, I've got the Tribune looking over my shoulder, and if it's me or them, it's gonna be them. Thompson stood up. The meeting was at an end. Hurriedly draining their glasses, Riley and McSwiggin got up and said their goodbyes. I'm relying on you, boys, called Thompson as they went out. He slumped wearily behind his desk, thinking about the coming presidential elections. If the gangster situation in Chicago erupted into a major scandal, he wouldn't even win the nomination, let alone the presidency. Capone himself would stand a better chance. One of his political aides entered, a tall, thin, elegant-looking man. He was carrying a newspaper. Yeah, what is it? Growled Thompson. The Tribunes are bringing out a special edition, sir. I managed to get an advance copy. I thought you ought to see it. He spread a sheet of newspaper on Thompson's desk. The thick black ink of the lettering on the giant headline was still wet. The front page of the paper was filled with a big picture of the bullet-shattered facade of the Hawthorne restaurant. The headline above the picture said, "This is war." Thompson glanced at the article below the headline. It began, "Gang war rages unchecked in Chicago, while a corrupt and inefficient civic administration stands helplessly by. When will Mayor Thompson act?" Thompson winced and averted his eyes. "You had the right idea earlier," murmured the aide. "I did. And what idea was that?" "Mobilize the police and crack down on these gangster scum." "What's the use of that? They own the judges in this town. They bribe or terrify the juries. We can never convict anyone." "Then kill them all," whispered the compelling voice. "Shoot them down like dogs." "Are you crazy? Do you know how many killers the mobs can call on? Capone alone must have 1,000 hoods on the payroll, all of them armed to the teeth. They've got Thompsons, carbines, shotguns, revolvers. It'll be a bloodbath." "The police have guns as well. When it's all over, you'll be a hero. The man who cleaned up Chicago." As the shadows began to gather in his office, Mayor Thompson's ears were filled with the harsh staccato chatter of Tommy guns. He saw the bodies of his enemies twisting and falling in a hail of bullets. The sound faded, and he saw himself taking the oath of office on the White House lawn. The tall, thin aide stood over him in the gloom. Just for a second, the eyes of the aide showed a glint of red.